What's up, guys? Welcome back to another Photos Go video. This channel is where we discuss and learn new skills around the topics of design and development. If you want to grow your skills and learn new things that are coming up, please subscribe for more videos just like this. Don't forget to smash the like button for me. This really helps me to create more content. In this video, we'll be learning about how we can build a simple feedback widget. And this feedback widget can be in your website, web app, or whenever you want. And users can just send you some feedback about your product. We'll be using Remix with Upstash Redis. And Upstash is a great choice if you want a fast, low latency, durable store for our application. But definitely to achieve this, we could connect with any DB providers, but we will stick with Upstash as it's awesome. And I want to also give a shout out, credit, and inspiration to this particular article. It's on Upstash blog, and I was thinking about what I can build with Remix and Upstash. I came across this feedback widget blog written, and it's written with Next.js and Upstash. So I tried to convert it to Remix, and yeah. So let's go ahead and build this. And before we begin, let's also take a look into the application that we have built. So this is the final application that we are building together, and as you can see, this should be closed by default because it's initially a boolean state false. And you can see we have this simple website. This could be a home page, this could be a landing screen, or upcoming launching screen, or whatever. And we have a floating icon over here, and if we click this icon, we can see this form. Not pretty well designed, but yeah, we are working with Upstash and Remix and focusing ourselves there. So for our email, we can write our email here, and let's also send a message. For the message, we can just write this is sample message, and we can check on the happy face here and submit our feedback. And you can see that button was disabled for sec. And if we click on this, our data has been saved actually. So let's go to our Upstash data dashboard, and inside here, let's go ahead and refresh this, and we can see here our we have added this particular data, which is the message and rating. We give it nice. So this is a simple feedback widget form that we are building with Upstash, Redis serverless platform, and also Remix. So without any delay, let's get this started. So we are here in the official Remix website. So let's go to get started page, and inside here we can see we have prerequisites. And what I want to do is I want to copy this particular line of command, which is npx create remix add latest, and bring on the terminal. For the terminal, I'm using warp, and hit on the command npx create remix add latest in your desired path. Desktop works for now. And after this is finished, we should see our remix project that has been created. For now, what we want to name our remix project is Upstash remix, and hit enter. And we just want to hit the basic configuration and deploy it to probably Vercel later on. And we will stick Typescript. Yes, and install all dependencies. After this has been added, now let's open up this inside of our text editor. After our project has been created, and we can see and take a look at the main root, which is underscore index.tsx. And inside here, what we want to do is we want to remove everything that we have in the boilerplate, and let's name it welcome to Remix with Upstash. And also we want to load in Tailwind configuration. So to load in Tailwind, we can head on to this particular article, official documentation from Tailwind, and step by step I will go ahead and configure Tailwind in our Remix project. I followed the basic steps from documentation, and Tailwind seems to be configured. So to check, we can go to our terminal and hit npm run dev. And after hitting that, we should see some changes inside of our page. So let's go to here, and as we can see, our heading is a little bit big, and it's also taking some styles from Tailwind. So that's awesome. Let's go ahead and build on top of this. So all right, so first things first, let's go to our index.tsx, and what you want to build first is a component. So let's start with building some components. So let's go to our app and create a directory, and inside there let's call it components. So inside of components, first what we want to do is we want to create a model.tsx, and particularly that model.tsx will hold all the information or that particular form that we saw before. So let's export default function, and that function is called model, and that model will take a couple of props later on, but we will just return some basic JSX for now. So and let's go ahead and save it. Let's go to our main, and inside there let's import our model from path components, and we have model.tsx. So let's use this particular model inside of our here. So that should be there, and it doesn't take any props currently. So let's go ahead, and we can see this is a model, and in the console we just have a couple of warnings. And yeah, it looks like we have loaded up our model inside of our app there. So let's go ahead and build our model. So to build our model, we saw that before, we need a couple of images as well. So I want to start off with adding some images because that's what we need to import as well. And let's go ahead and create another file and call it images. So inside of images, we want to make the use of three emojis. So we call it emoji nice, sad, and meh. Let's start with emoji nice.tsx, and inside of that emoji nice we want to paste in a couple of svg of the emoji, and this is emoji nice, and we want to further and add other emojis. So let's add in emoji sad. So let's go ahead and copy emoji sad svg and paste in, we call it emoji sad. Let's go ahead and close these two emojis, and another last emoji that will be loading up is emoji meh, emoji.tsx, and inside there we want to access this particular emoji meh. That's what it's pronounced, I guess. So, and it's there. So we imported all emoji inside of our model. Now, before we use all the emojis, we want to further create some other components. So another component that we'll be creating is called rating. This should be rating.tsx, and let's go to rating. And this particular component will export default function and call it rating, and this particular rating will take in some props later on, but for now this could be just a function which returns some JSX, and inside this JSX we could add rating is here, and let's go ahead and save it, and inside there let's go ahead and import that particular rating that we created, and which should be from our components, and that particular rating can be imported inside of our app right in here. All right, so it looks good. Now let's go ahead and just close this rating. Everything looks good. All right, so before we loop down all the emojis that we have, let's go ahead and add other fields. For example, we need a couple of paragraphs and text on this particular model. So to achieve that, I want to bring in some of the snippet that I have already prepared, and let's paste in inside of our return function there. And inside here, what we can see here we have used capital F form imported from Remix.run React, and also we have used form ref, which we haven't created. There is input ref and also input class names. So let's first start with input class name, because it's a reusable class name. I mean, two of the fields are using this particular class name though, so I'll just create a constant and call it input class name, and that text area and input shares this particular class name, and this particular input takes in type, name, and a ref property, ref attribute, and that's input ref. So that input ref can be destructured and received as a prop from here. Let's go ahead for easiness. I'll just go ahead and copy this and paste it down here, and that particular input ref can be typed as iModel props, and let's define this particular interface. So let's define an interface and call it iModel props, and that particular interface will take in basically three things actually. It's actually status, which would be boolean, and a form ref and an input ref. So, and this is from the ref object, so let's go ahead and import ref object from React, and also probably input ref, form ref. So we should also destructure form ref and receive it as a prop here, and also probably status can be also destructured. So let's bring in status as well inside of our component, and after that's done, we will make the use of these emojis later on. So we have the form and other status, so we haven't really used this particular status, and basically let's use this particular status when our button is being submitted. We see this disabled state, and that's what we'll be using. So after that's done, let's go ahead and add some form states. For adding some couple of form states and make the use of this rating component, we can firstly define useState hook. So in front, on the top of model, let's call this form rate, set form rate, which is a useState hook which can be imported from useState, probably useState, and this is type rate. So let's also define the type for the ratings, as this should be the rating state, and we should type some rate, and that rating state can be just empty string, bad, meh, and nice. Okay, now we can make the use of these emojis that we created. So now in the place where we have this rating tag that's placed here, we can now make the use of this rating. So I'll just paste in all the rating, and basically this rating will take in value, name, selected, and on change as a prop, and this on form rate change is not defined. So let's go ahead and define this on change form rate, and inside here we want to create a constant and call it on change form rate, which will take in value as a param, and set the form rate to the value that's received. And also probably this is yelling at us. It should be some children, so we are not passing rating as children. So let's go back to rating, and inside of this particular rating we should configure it to pass in some children. So to pass in some children, we could destructure children and pass it here, but what I want to do is I want to bring up the snippet that I have already prepared. Basically this would receive a couple of props, and that props types are defined here as an interface, and it's just children, selected, on change, value, and name, which are destructured here used in this input field: name, value, and on change, and children. So label is wrapped inside of children, so we can pass any React node element or JSX elements over here. So that would be great. So now if you go ahead and see this, there is no error there because we have passed this as a children to our reading component. That's how it's working. All right, so I suppose our model component is quite ready enough. So let's go ahead and bring in this model right here, and it says there are a couple of props missing. So currently our model is complaining because it is expecting some props as we define in the interface model props. So if you go inside here, it's trying to get input ref, form ref, and status. So we haven't really passed in there. So let's go ahead and pass in the rest of the props. So I'll just grab in the rest of the props that's needed for the form. So that's basically the status, form ref, and the input ref. And we haven't really used any of these inside of our this particular component. So let's go ahead and define these couple of properties. So first property is submitting. So in order to get each submitting, we should make the use of other hooks that's available to us, which is use transition hook. And let's go ahead and import this use transition from React and Remix.run React, and we have this transition now. And what we could do is we could check that if our transition submission dot post is post, then it's submitting. And also we want to bring in the form ref and also the input ref, which is just making the use of use ref from React, and we are importing everything here after we have added all the necessary props. So let's go ahead and see that in action. If we refresh, then we could see that we have this form here, which is awesome. And there are a couple of warnings. Let's go ahead and add a couple of heading and paragraphs to our application. One thing that you may be wondering is the form is floating to the right bottom. So actually it's a floating form, so that's why we have placed it to the right bottom, and we will fix everything and that's needed work this floating icon. So let's go ahead and add h1 and p tags for our this particular page, and we can now go ahead and see that in action. We have this particular thing. Now another stuff that we need to add is a button. So to add a button, we need to make the track of a couple of state that after clicking on this particular button, this model needs to show and hide. So this button that we have just added takes in a couple of prop, which is on click, and if it's open model, and just reverse what's the current open model is, and if it's open model we grab this, if it's not we added this icon. So this open model and set open model is basically a use state. So we are defining a use state inside here. So let's bring in use state as it's not imported from React, and open model and set open model. So we have this, and we want to wrap this particular model inside of a JSX, and we will add some logic. For example, if the open model is there, we will show this piece of UI. So after adding this, only if we have the open model that's true, we'll show this piece of UI. And for this we need to import another icon library, I suppose. So let me quickly check. Yeah, we are importing everything from React icons. So let's go ahead and stop this and install npmi and React icons. And after installation, we should see that our icon should be resolved, and it should not be totally red, kind of red as we see there. Also probably it needs to be imported from here. All right, so looks good. So we have this form, and let's go ahead and run this locally again, npm run dev, and take a look at what do we have here. And in the initial state, as we described before, we have this set open model to false. That's why the model is not loading, and if we click on it, it becomes true, and we can write something here and submit our feedback. So now next thing that we could do before we style things up with Tailwind, for the background and images right here, we could experiment and test out our form is being submitted. So in order to submit our form, we need action function inside of action inside of our remix. So I'll just grab in the action function that we need, function which is typed as action function. So let's import action function from Remix.run node, and that will take in some of the field properties, field values, and that values are email, which is form data.get email, form data.get message, form data.get rating. And these are three values that we are receiving from the form, and id is just random. Best to use any id generation library, but for now we are sticking with data now to string. And if there's any validation required, we can do the validation here and insert the data ultimately to our Upstash right in here. So we haven't really created this particular function called insert data. So we could console log everything right in here, but I'm pretty much sure we should see that value. So before we continue, let's go to our routes, and probably we haven't really made utils file. Okay, so let's create utils, and inside this particular utils we will create a new file and call database.ts. And inside that database.ts, what we want to do is we want to import Upstash Redis. So let's go ahead and install Upstash Redis, npmi Upstash, and also we want to install .enconfig, probably npmi .enconfig. After that particular installation, what we can do is we can go back to our main page where we have this database.ts and paste in the code necessary. We have imported these two packages that we just installed, which is .enconfig and also Upstash Redis, and we are taking the environment variables from Redis, and we are inserting our data inside of our Upstash, which takes in id as a string and feedback as an object. So and returns a new promise, and after resolving it just resolves the data. If there's no data, we are throwing new error. So and the key part is we have this data and which awaits for redis.addSet, and this particular method is available to us via Upstash Redis, which basically helps us to save some data inside of our Upstash, and we grab this from a process env database key, which is as a string, and key value is an id of object feedback. And we really haven't defined any of the environment variables, so we can go to our Upstash dashboard and go to our main page, and we could create a new database and call it says that we just have one tire, so I just want to reuse what we have here, and it just accepts and the free plan. And inside of our REST API we can see click on Upstash Redis and we can see everything that's needed here. Basically we have this token, this URL and this token generated, and we could save this as redis.set or anything that we can use. So we can just go ahead and copy this Redis client URL and also Redis REST token, and we can use that inside of our here. So and also database key would be the same that's here, which is the feedback. So I'll just create what's needed. The main thing is creating the environment file. So I'll create the env file, and inside this env file we want to paste in the keys that we need, and these are all the three keys that's basically needed: database key, Upstash Redis REST token, and Upstash Redis REST URL. After adding these particular keys, we can save and close this. After we have pasted in all the keys and all the necessary things that we need from the database, that's from the dashboard, we can now close the dashboard or go to data browser. And this was our old data from the previous app that I have already created. So let's go ahead and delete that. And now what we can do is we can import that particular database.ts created inside of utils, and we can make the use of that insert data right in here, which takes an ID and an object, which is a feedback, which contains a couple of properties called user, misses, and reading. After that's done, probably we are pretty much ready to test this out inside of our browser. Let's go ahead and save this and also run our server locally, npm run dev. And for the message, we can call it "this is an awesome message we are writing." And probably it looks happy, so let's submit our feedback. And as you can see, our button was disabled for a sec, and that's what we wanted, and it's refreshed back. And if we click on it, we don't see our data there. And if we go back to Upstash and then hit on refresh, and we can see our data inside of our data browser. Before there was something called data lake around here, but it's inside of data browser. All right, so we can make the use of this particular data, and we could export it or do whatever we want with this data. And this is how we could combine things with Remix and Upstash, Redis. So behind the scene, I'll just spice things up and add some styles to our application. So after a couple of style changes, our application looks quite decent than before. So we have this particular heading and whatnot, and this could be website landing page. And here we have a floating icon. Let's go ahead and click on it, and we can also, without filling it, close this. And also let's go ahead and add email and a message. So we can just add in some dummy data, and I'm happy with the application that we have here. So let's submit our feedback. And after submitting our feedback, we can see the browser is being refreshed a bit actually behind the scene. And if we take a look at here and refresh, we should see two data, which is this particular thing, which is nice. Rating was nice, and the random message, and also two messages has been added here. So this is how we could work around with Remix and Upstash. So guys, in this video we learned about how we can use Remix and Upstash and build a simple feedback form sending application. I hope you learned something new from this. So if you want to learn more around the topics of design and development, please subscribe for more videos just like this. And don't forget to smash the like button for me. This really helps me to create more content for you guys. Thanks a lot, guys. I'll see you in the next one.